Hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Welcome to the live stream for the October 14th. It's a Wednesday. Normally we would do this on a Tuesday, but I had an appointment yesterday, a scheduled appointment with my ophthalmologist. Specifically, I was only supposed to be going in to get some retinal imaging done, which more or less involves walking in the door, sitting in a chair, resting your chin on a little ledge. They shine a light in your eye, tell you not to blink, and then you leave. It's really that quickly. But they called me just before my appointment and said, there's an opportunity for you to see the actual doctor today as well. Can you get here a little bit early and do that? I said yes. That stops me from having to schedule another appointment for a couple of weeks and find my way to the doctor's office again. And that particular exam requires your eyes to be dilated 9 ways from Sunday. They were as big as dimes, my irises. So while the dilation was mostly gone by the time streaming was going to happen, I always find when that happens that my eyes still feel fuzzy and wrong, and I had a little bit of a headache because it was an exceptionally sunny day, of course. It was very rainy in the morning when I went for my morning walk. Stopped raining just as I got home. Started being extra sunny, and then it got even more sunny as my wife and I were on our way back from the doctor, and I was squinting, and my eyes were running the whole time. So we are. I decided I didn't want to put a stream off. I thought I would do it today instead of yesterday, or putting it off for a whole week. So here we are now. My original plan for this evening was to actually work on an override audit tomorrow, which is what we worked on last week. But I had a thought, and unfortunately, the tweets were already queued up to go, and I could not. I didn't stop it in time. For something that would actually perhaps be a fun thing to be doing on tonight's stream, and that is an extension pardon me, to a plugin that's in the Stealthy and Hasty Scraps repository for generating a complete command list in Sublime Text. And I thought, it would be cool if we leverage some of the new stuff in Sublime Text 4 or Sublime Text 4K, as we perhaps call it, to make a better, if you will, version of that allows you to browse the command palette, because then you could narrow in on particular commands easier if you kind of knew their name, if you could filter on them. And you could also open the appropriate plugin file, and perhaps, we'll see how she goes, and jump you to that actual location. So I thought we might give that a shot for this evening and see where it takes us. And if that doesn't take a long amount of time at all, or it seems like it's not something that will actually work the way we like, then we can continue on with override audit. So I think we should go from there. And so let us begin. Hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Welcome to the live stream for this evening. Now, I did schedule, and for a while there, the idea was to work on override audit tonight, and I decided we're going to be working on something just a little bit different. And of course, I covered that in the introduction to the stream, but sometimes we trim things to jump right into the stream proper. So this is just a little bit of a referral. Now, we actually have screen to look at here. So in the Stealthy and Hasty repository, and I can't remember. Yeah, I didn't add it in here, so I could provide a link to that if anybody's interested. Just let me know in the chat or in the comments of the messages. But this particular plugin was taken from the Stealthy and Hasty Scraps repository. As we can see here, it was written. It's a variation of something that's written for that Stack Overflow answer that's mentioned right there. And the idea was, actually, I believe I also mentioned it, this particular thing, I just realized in one of the plugin videos late last year, finding the source for commands. And basically, it's for doing something like this. We can go generate command list, and this is a list of almost every command, not every command, but almost every command. We'll get to that in just a moment, for commands that are available in Sublime. And so we can see, based on things like the default package has a command named echo, in a file named echo, or module named echo in the default package, and there's this also the increase font size, decrease font size in a file named font. Install package control, the command is in that location. Hello, Ashwin. and so on. Now, this doesn't contain all commands for a couple of reasons. One, commands that are in the core don't show up in here because they're not exposed to the plugin host the same way that other commands are. And this is currently in my user package, and it's Sublime Text 4 that runs in Python 3.8. That's a different plugin host than Python 3.3, and the two of them don't intermingle with regards to code that is actually available here. So if we were to look, Override Audit doesn't appear as a package anywhere in here, even though it is definitely something that actually exists. And the inverse would be true if this plugin was running in a 3.3 package, then Override Audit would show up in there, and 3.8 packages wouldn't show up, which I think includes all of the default packages that ship with Sublime that have plugins, because they are all set to run in the Python 3.8 host, including the default package, but it might get a pass and be exposed to both because it's functionality that's important for it to be in both. So I thought, and this is something that actually came to me while I was walking the dog before the stream started. I was looking in this earlier, specifically because of this. Kill ring and kill ring yank. Someone in the Discord asked, what does add to kill ring do? And I checked using strings on the binary to see if that was something that was in the core, and it wasn't. And I thought, maybe that command went away, but it definitely seems to do something. And then I generated a command list and saw that it's in this file. So then I went to look at kill ring, and here it is in here. And we can sort of see what it is it's actually doing. It's grabbing regions of text and adding them to a ring, which it seems like nothing actually does anything with. The yank command will put stuff in, will invoke the command to put stuff into there. The add to kill ring command puts text in directly, as we can see. And in mark.py, if I did this one, delete to mark, calls the add to kill ring command, and a lot of the default macros do as well. But nothing else in default or in well, this is a default package. Nothing in the vintage package either actually accesses this command. So that was weird. But it got to me thinking that it's nice to be able to generate this and scan through it, but wouldn't it be nicer if there was just a list and you could filter? And we have new action in the command through the command about the quick panel now for quick panel completion items, which I don't think are actually in Snappy yet. So we could actually display stuff perhaps a little bit nicer. So I thought, why not see if we could adapt this code that generates this into something that's a browsable command list. It seems like it might be an interesting diversion for things, and if it seems like it's totally impossible, we could always do override audit. If for some magical reason I managed to finish something like this in less than 2 hours time, we could still work on override audit. But it seems like it might be an interesting thing. Now, an issue with this is that commands from the 3.3 plugin host won't show up in here, but you can execute commands. So there might be a funky way to do stuff with it, to get our plugin command to execute a command in the 3.3 plugin host that invokes our command back with its own stuff. Ashwin says, I believe those were introduced in the 2000 builds to mimic some functionality in Emacs. Yeah, everything that I know about kill rings and yank buffers is 100%, the world of Vim. So I was expecting there to be a paste command. Well, there's a paste command. Let's see. In Vim, YY, yanks, and P, maybe it's put instead of paste. I've always thought of it as paste, to copy lines and paste them somewhere else, or delete lines and paste them somewhere else, but there is no such thing. I had that similar thought too. That's what made me think maybe it's something that was added for the vintage package, but the vintage package doesn't have anything to do with it either, and there aren't any key bindings that do anything with it either, except for one I added because I was curious what would happen if I turn on command logging and bind this. Will something happen? And yes, it gets real mad because you didn't provide it the argument forward, which it definitely requires. So yeah, it remains a mystery. I'm kind of hoping that one of the devs, maybe even John, might pop in and say something about it. I imagine at this stage it has to stay there forever because there might be something that relies on it. Can't imagine what that would be, but you never know. Now, I don't think we have quick panel item in here, do we? Oh, no, we don't. Oh, and I have a powerful sneeze that's a coming. Ah, that's better. So I think what we might do, yeah, they're used in the default macros. They put stuff into the kill ring, but they don't do anything. As a matter of fact, oh yeah, this window was created not from the appropriate thing, but I imported it and then deleted some text just to see it appear in there. So it's kind of a neat thing that could potentially be used by something, but I was unable to find any reference to that command or specifically to importing the actual kill ring global that everything puts stuff into, because that seems to be the only way to get anything out of it. Sort of like the paste from history has a similar object. Go to the lib. Is that the file I want? No. Figures. Probably this one. Unless I'm just remembering the name of the class we're interested in. Thus, trigger details annotation kind. We can define our own kind, should we like. I think that'll allow us to throw some nice annotations on some things. So let's play with that first and see where we go. Now, I guess I should point out, actually, let's see if I have a window here. Whoops. I think. In this repository in Sublime Scraps, there should be in plugins. Again, I believe this is linked in one of the, and that's bright, one of the plugin videos. This one right here. Paste this link in the chat in case anybody wants to look and see. As food for thought, one could leverage result file regex and result line regex to jump to the plugin file. Yeah, that would also be a good idea to implement in that too. This one is pretty simple because of it was created for that. So that link is to the plugin that we're actually interested in, presuming that I, as a moderator for my own stream, I'm capable of doing that. And it generates this. We should also point out that the list of all classes that represent application commands, window commands, and text commands are known to the actual underpinnings of the plugin system in Sublime Plugin. That's the bit where, as it's loading things, actually you can see them up here. As it's loading classes, it looks to see if it has any classes that are subclasses of the command class, which is the common base class to all of these three things. And if they are, the name of the class is thrown in here. And then there are methods that actually create these at the appropriate time. Application commands are created right away. Window commands are created when there's windows. Text commands are created when there's view. The same thing is done for event listeners, but in that case, they have a little bit of extra stuff in them because they have the list of all appropriate callbacks that could potentially exist in all things. And then there's a list of, these are the things that don't work in view event listers, which is any event that has anything to do with not a view. Interesting that on new buffer appears in there, but I guess a new buffer isn't associated with a view. A buffer is associated with a specific view, and if you had a specific view, you'd already be able to get its buffer. So for the same reason that on new isn't in there, that seems to make a lot of sense. And then there's just, a little bit of glue code in here. As we can see, I totally booped this from PEP 257. It takes the doc strings out of any commands that happen to have them, which is not a lot of the ones in the core, except for recently added ones. And then using the contents of those lists, we get the classes. We can figure out what their module name is, their command name, arguments, and docs. And interestingly, this getName method here is actually boosted directly from the command class in Sublime Plugin command. This fact is probably in here. Like so. it's a little bit longer, I guess. Oh, maybe we could bump it down a little bit to line left like so, because I have a .com indenter that explains. This is actually something that's an instance method. Sublime uses it behind the scenes. Theoretically, if you wanted to, when you created a command, you could implement the name command and return whatever string you want, and then that's the name that your command would be known by instead of its actual class name. Not a lot of reason to do something like that. There's something that used to be in the underpinnings of package dev that played that kind of trick. I can't remember exactly what. I think the idea was there could be one of two potential classes that are used to provide the actual implementation for a command, and they're conditionally included in. And because the class name is different, the command name would be different, so they have to implement the name method in order to do that. It's very rare. In all of the years I've been using Sublime, I've never had to do that except to say, hey, can I do this? And the answer was yes. Well, I could, but probably not a good idea. Whoops. I probably should have kept that open because this is the one I was actually interested in. I was less interested in that particular one. And I implemented this here because I didn't want to have to implement or create a new instance of every command just to be able to ask it its name. It doesn't seem like a good idea. If anything is going to be creating command classes, it should be Sublime. Otherwise, things could potentially go pear-shaped. I try not to break things where possible. So let's say we need a new package for this. That's weird. One other thing that I have done is, as we can see there, I've modified my Sublime Text 4 install to have a different data directory than Sublime Text 3. For a long time, I was just letting it fall back to the other one so that they would share between the two, because I still have Sublime Text 3 installed, so I can help people on the forum. But call it command browser. I decided not to do that because there was a change made to package dev in preparation for some new stuff that's happening that makes its version incompatible with Sublime Text version 3. And if it's installed for 4, when you start Sublime Text 3, package control says, hey, I found this package and it's the wrong version. You should totally remove it. And then it starts throwing away dependencies. And then you have to remove the package and reinstall it, and then when you go back to 4, then it wants to update again. It was a giant pain in the butt. So I just sort of duplicated my Sublime Text 3 config, named it Sublime Text. Now I have 2 of them. How do you get those random quotes to appear in the terminal? Which random quotes are those? Oh, this one here. That is the fortune command. It's set to automatically throw one of these out. You can lose a lot of time just sitting and running these, but it's part of one of the core profile files in etc. I think, so that it always shows something when you fire things up with a packet. Say, probably should have done that a smarter way. Sublime, what did I call that thing again? Command browser. Let's go ahead and add it that way. Still feeling the effects of that sneeze. So let's see. Actually, I should probably say. Whoa! I hate when that happens. Okay, so we got Python version 3.8, and let's touch this and open it from here. And is that probably good for now? Good enough for now, I think. So what we're going to want to do is, whoa. There's a reason why I use that other command, because apparently I can't type the word import to save my life. Oh, there we go. So what are we going to test here? I think Let's play with this for a second. So class sample command. Want this to be a window command? Want this to be application command? It really only ever needs to be one, right? The version of that here is text command, or so that's a window command. Oh, because it's a window command because it generates a view into its own window. But we're not going to generate a view. We're going to open a file, so we don't need to worry about that here. I'm going to close that for the time being. Go back to here. And save that. User keys, that's sample command. So this is an example of the binding that I added. If you press the key, woo, it's mad. It's so mad. So yeah, that's definitely a command that exists. That's not totally just some weird holdover that does nothing. Incidentally, that whole idea of commands not appearing from the 3.3 host in 3.8 and vice versa sort of wreaks havoc with package dev's ability to provide auto completions as well, which is a bit of a bummer. So let's say we did that. It's definitely running. Cool. So we're good. Now, I guess there was a reason for that to be a window command, and that's this. Show quick. So we need a list of items. On select definitely has to be a thing. We can do that with self.pick. No, we can't. I like to do this way so that I don't have to save the items in an instance variable. I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. That's kind of irritating though. And do we need any flags? Let's see. Monospace, keep on focus loss, don't care. On highlight. I don't think we care about that either. So that's probably good. So, oops. Nice. Now, if we were to look at this, we could create our own quick panel items using this action. Pardon me. From Sublime, import quick panel item. I've been doing too much other stuff. Still cool. Oh, this was another thing that I implemented today. Actual real console clear. That is sweet. Thanks to a new setting that has been added to control what the length of the scrollback buffer in the console is, and probably other panel views as well, if I had to guess, because I think people complained that regular output panels also have a length limit on them, which kind of shocked me. But first item is to trigger, then details, then annotation. And if I did that, trigger, details, annotation. And we need our own custom kind, I guess. Anybody remember how that works? Let's do this. Oops, let's do that. That did not do what I wanted. You set kind application is equal to Sublime dot kind ID what? What would be the type of annotation that represents an application command, a window command, and a text command? A variable, a navigation, a namespace, a function? Type? I'm down with that. And the last thing here is this, right? I only played with this very briefly back when it was originally included. Maybe we want a capital A on that so it looks a little nicer. I assume the other part of that annotation doesn't arrive in that. So this would be, oh wait, I have to do that again. The trigger is the text that's actually searched. So that would be the command name, right? And what would be put in the details of this thing? The documentation comment, if there was any. I'm not sure how long that can actually be. I would assume it's just one line. I would assume. Does it make sense to have multiple things there? Does it make sense to have different, I assume the color of that comes from kind, right? Like if this was function. Now it's red instead of the thing. Multiple lines as a list. Oh, hey, well. I didn't even realize that was you that said that. Normally it's Ashwin that comments like that. That would be kind of neat. So I suppose something like this. Maybe I should do that in the right spot, huh? Before I break stuff. I've noticed I have a disturbing tendency to use double quote strings in some places and singles quote strings in other places. And I blame the work that I'm doing in Node.js because everybody wants single quotes there. And now it's bothering me that I never decide. The arguments in the details. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? I don't really want to display. One of the first thought that I had on this was using the input handler and then could display the doc comment in the preview area, but most commands don't have one, so it doesn't seem like that really provides a lot of juice there, such as it is. What's the longest, most gnarly one of these things we could actually see? Expand tabs. Let's throw that in there. Uh-oh. Oh, whoops. I commented that part out. Look better with whoops, the actual stuff. Oh, well, I have this, Will just asked, I have no idea what we're trying to accomplish. I have this plugin that generates a list of all commands. Whoops. Oh, don't have the same key bindings here. Across all packages that in response to somebody asked a question on Stack Overflow a long time ago. And it occurred to me that having something like this that would allow you to browse by command name to narrow in on stuff might be kind of a neat thing to go. Now I'm thinking if the annotation over here is like A for application command and W for window command and T for text command, and maybe that part doesn't need to specifically lay it out over there. Maybe that would be a place to actually put, like default.echo or something. Well, whatever the actual module that this thing was stored inside of. The idea being that when you choose one of the items from the list, it'll open the plugin and jump you directly to the place where that command is actually defined. Or alternatively, it could copy the arguments to the clipboard to make it easier to create a key binding. Package name in the annotation. Which one is the annotation now? I totally lost track of what I was doing. Oh, and shoot. Having this giant font. What a wrong window, bro. Clear details. Just the package name and not the actual module too. As technically, you probably don't care so much what module a thing is actually in if it's going to open it for you. I like your idea of the plugin source better. Yeah. Cool. This is one of those things where I like to just sort of play around with the idea of what it could actually do and then go from there. The path of the plugin in the end. Yeah, I don't. Theoretically, you could figure out the file name. I assume the module name generally follows the package name, but to be honest, I don't have that much knowledge of the super underpinnings of the whole operation. That seems like it's actually, that's not too shabby. Let's make a, that is long and ugly. Do a little bit of this. Whoops. Window and text, let's say. Is this last part here only displayed in the quick panel or in the auto completion panel thing? I assume. Let's go ahead and grab a little bit of these. Let's see. This is one of those areas where I was like, should you subvert the actual system of what the annotation is supposed to have just to provide pleasing colors? Or no? I kind of like the idea of just being able to tell. If you're a plugin author, you care. Otherwise, you really don't, right? So it does not really necessary to provide more information than that. And then it follows the regular scheme for how everything else. Tooltip on the kind. Does that work in here? Oh. That shows you how often I use my mouse to hover over stuff. Oh, that's the kind information is the function there, huh? Right. Oh. I think that would actually do not too shabby. Now the other issue with this, such as it is that because this is running in the 3.8 host, the 3.3 commands don't show up in here. But I had this theory that if there was one plugin in a sister package that was a 3.3 package that had a command that when you invoke it, it just immediately gathers information from its plugin host for commands that it knows about, and then invokes another command that's in this package with that as arguments. It could shoot that information over. Interestingly, it should be using the full name provided by the API. Oh, the tooltip there. In other words, it should. Oh, that's interesting. In that case, we might have just found an an issue there. Does it display in here too? Doesn't look like it. Oh, that one does. Type. We got to narrow it in on the. But those ones aren't. Oh, function. Whoop. I'm helping. So, command name. So then this is going to be the arguments. Let's make this a little bit shorter. And module. That'll look a little bit, yeah, everything still works. That's cool. Whoa. Oh, yeah. I guess I should probably actually implement that method if I'm going to actually hit enter on there, huh? Oops. Oh, I broke it. There. That's nice. That's better. We'll get rid of all of that evidence. There. That terrible bug never existed, and you can't prove it except for looking back through the history of the thing. Okay, now we need to boost some code out of this bad boy. Not sure how much of this will actually be required. Also, let's do this too. That looks nicer. And oops. Kind of like these more up here. For go-to symbol in project, the tooltip doesn't have the full name of the kind info, mostly for size in the symbol index. Yeah. Please feel free to interject at will. I like the inside knowledge, if you will, about this sort of thing. Like we were wondering earlier what the purpose of the add to kill ring command is, because it looks like commands put stuff in to the kill ring, but nothing ever seems to take it out. Is that like a vestige of an older version of Sublime that's still there for compatibility reasons with packages that might decide to do something with it? Or was it part of vintage or something? The kind of information that isn't technically needed to work anything, but it gnaws at you, man. It gnaws at you. This looks like something that's probably interesting. What did I grab there? So oh yeah, right. I'm not sure how much of that might actually still be necessary for this, but easier to easier to work it that way. I'm pretty sure I don't care about trimming the documentation string. And get commands. I'm glad I documented this so much and yet still can't quite remember exactly what it is that it's doing. So it gets the we're probably going to need that kind of action too. Stash this information. Arguments, probably going to want that. Probably could have just copied that or put it directly in this other one. But, you know, that one's in my user package, so I don't want to mess with it too much. Let's throw that in there. And that is probably not required. Something like that, too, I would imagine. So if we throw this in here, whoa. Sure why I expect that to expand out to anything. It's an interesting, the kill ring is sort of an interesting little I didn't realize that that was there. Immediately my mind starts going to, how can I take advantage of things that I have cut in the past? But then I'd have to investigate more exactly how big the ring is and what it is that it's doing. Uh-oh. Made that unhappy, huh? Crunk. Oh, right. Oh, I should probably. Ah, that was dumb. Let's do that the correct way. There. Oh, all right. I guess I was using that after all. Who knew? I also searched the forum for random ST knowledge just because you never know when it'll become useful and it's much more fun. I'm recently into looking how bookmarks work. Yeah, I've looked into that in the past as well. I think there was somebody that on Stack Overflow that was incredibly irate that when you create a bookmark, it's bookmarks the start of the line and not the exact cursor location. And I think I don't really use bookmarks that much myself. And he was very angry about it on Stack Overflow, and I provided him like a 4-line plugin that swapped how bookmarks work to do it the way that he wanted. And he was all like, "Thanks, I guess. Can't please everybody all the time, but never hurts to try." Oh, we don't want the doc string. I'm gonna say that part is not that interesting. Good news! I have a wall of text. And it might be 3,000 lines long. Nope, it's less than 3,000 lines long. That's cool. Or the default. Oh, it's keyed by package, is it? You see, I've already forgotten exactly how this thing works to begin with, which is an interesting. I don't know when it was that I actually wrote this thing. I actually use it fairly frequently when someone asks questions on Stack Overflow or in the forum. Like, I bet you I could figure that out by looking at the actual command, and then I can never remember what file it's actually located inside of. Decode the command. Each one has 3. Now, I don't know the way that this was originally written. Man, that is rough. The breakdown was set by text commands, window commands, and application commands, so that when it generates this, it could group them out, which is something that I added in there specifically because. Thanks, dude. I don't know if you can see, my dog is laying there on that rug in the smallest possible position that he could fit. There's a bigger rug back there, but why stretch yourself out when you can stay in a tiny little ball? And apparently he has an issue that there's somebody in my hallway, or sorry, his hallway. But I found as I was referring to the command list that I wasn't sure what kind of command it actually was, and then I'd have to open the file to see. So I rejiggered it to display it this way. So probably that is not strictly required. We just need to know what package they're in. And even then, that actually might not be. Or maybe it would. Really need to get it to stop after 1. But yeah, let's say we don't technically care about that, because the actual type of the command is actually in the list, right? Text commands. In the HTML package, there's a text command in that module with that name. Here's an interesting thing. Is one of these things the file that this thing is actually stored inside of? That I'm not sure of. Swap this first. Let's say we don't need it by command type. We just need that. Oh wait, that should be a list then, right? I'm gonna guess. You append a list? I'm gonna say we probably want something like that. That's probably a little bit nicer. Certainly a lot shorter than it was a moment ago. Hey, command browser. It's an application command in the command browser class in the browse module with the name of sample with arguments none. It works! So, if we were to temporarily gank that and bring it up here. Just sort of need to convert it into stuff like that, right? As the list of items. Oh, and actually, should that be... No, this one actually needs to be a dictionary because it's keyed on the package name. In case of overrides, do you want them to navigate to the original for the overridden Python file? I'm going to say no, because in order to get at the original source for the thing that hasn't been overridden, you have to look up the Sublime package file, open it as a zip file, and pull out the appropriate thing so that you can display it in a buffer, which is something that override audit does so that it can get at the source version to set up the incremental diff so that you can see what's different. But for the purposes of something simple like this, that is not on the immediate radar. Although it might be interesting to have the information that override audit has to know when something is an override or not. Probably this one. To be able to tell you that if you were looking at the paste from history command, it has been overridden. That could be interesting. But I don't think, well, technically, I guess the package info class could have information about that sort of thing. So that's not entirely undoable if it detected that. If it tried to import the appropriate thing from override audit and it worked, then it could use the class. The override audit has a package info class that completely wraps all of the information about a particular package, where the source packages are, whether it's unpacked or not, and all that good stuff. So that technically could allow something like that. Let's look at that. No. And I just copied some text to the clipboard. Okay, so we need to convert this right into an actual list of items. And the command dictionary is keyed by the actual classes. So, or sorry, or call that classes, it's packages, right? Now. Something like so. Using JavaScript, TypeScript, and Python all in short proximity to each other really messes with my head about what the APIs look like. I'll say that. Oh, I guess we need to iterate all of the stuff, don't we? Probably want something like that, right? And then because that's going to be a list. Is this one of those things that could totally be condensed down into the world's most heinous list comprehension? It's probably faster, but I don't know that I want to break my brain with something like that. And how did we say we're going to inject these things in here? Name of the actual command is the first thing. And then the second thing was the arguments. Oops. Which is args. Throw the module third. Oh. Maybe there was a reason to separate it out by the 3 different types of commands for that kind annotation. That might have been an idea. I never understand, how did that print statement get in that JavaScript file? I have done that more times than I care to count. And then after I spend 2 days working on TypeScript and JavaScript, I come here and immediately start console logging things. That reminds me, I have a standard. I've tried to standardize on a snippet with CW for console, right? That expands out to the appropriate thing for whatever language I'm in, like printfs in C and stuff. Apparently, I never gotten around to doing that in Python. Sorry. Comment that. Comment this. Okay, well, so far that's kind of working. That needs to have the package name thrown onto the module. How ugly is that? So ugly. But that totally works. And kind. How about a little bit of this action? We can do a little bit of this. Oh, no, I should have known. Did not put the comma there. All right. Now we got something going on here. Some commands have argument lists that are perhaps a little robust for the purposes of this, I guess. But on the whole, not terrible. So, don't care about that, or that, or that. That's going to bug me if I don't tweak it. Okay, now. You can use limited mini HTML in the description if you want to format the args as monospace. Is that one of those situations where I could probably split that into multiple lines too somehow, right? Yeah, the arguments in the exec command, that's definitely your stress tester for something like that. And let's do this. Right. Is there something in here that's, if there was a file in here, it probably wouldn't point out the right thing, right? So, okay, so Will said the description can be a list of mini HTML strings. Or even if they weren't, if it was just a list of strings. But that would make it nice to mark that up. I guess the issue there is coming up with a clever way to split it. Whoops. That doesn't make it any wider, does it? It's sort of the maximum based on that. But that's kind of worrying. Why does this appear so many times? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, every item in the list would be the same height that way, wouldn't? Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that it doesn't ... fade those long strings out, actually. Why are there that many execs? Is this doing something wrong, or is it seeing one for every time some other plugin imported the symbol? I don't see... Should fade them. Yeah, that's what I would have thought. It doesn't seem like it is. But I'm not one for visual stuff, and my visual acuity is not the greatest, I must say. Do this. Okay, so this one just appears multiple times. What a piece of junk this software is. Bite your tongue. This is the preeminent text editing software. I'm solely converting people in my head office in Toronto into using Sublime because they see me using it in not live streams, in Zoom things and stuff. Apparently, I can navigate around files faster than they can navigate around in VS Code, which probably has everything to do with me being more familiar with my tool than they are with theirs. But I'll take what I can get in converting people over. What's the good solution to this apparently being seen so many times? Could this be a set instead? How bad does that blow stuff up? Real bad? Oh. Right. Because that's not what that's supposed to be. Right. Probably this other part, if it was going to be anything, should be a set, right? If it was going to work at all, which, yeah. The chat is expressing disbelief that Will called Sublime a piece of junk. I don't think he was being serious. What's the magic for? Oh, an add. All right. Dicts are unhashable. All right, so let's not go that route then. Is that actually faster? I don't know. I'm referring to the bugs I wrote in quick panel item. I see. Let's go back to that so I don't go blind out the side. Is there a reason? Just thinking this is storing things by package, but it doesn't need to store them by package because package is part of the thing that they're in. It could sort them by name and store them by name instead. And all commands should be unique in that regard, right? So this could actually key them on command and not on package to get around that. Are you getting class objects back in Python? Yeah, if I do that to display all of the stuff, oh, yeah, let me clear that. I have it set to print if the command name is exec. So by iterating through, I'm guessing window command, exec is showing up 6 times in the list of all classes. But I would bet that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the original. So I would expect that, let me close that so that's not so awful. One of these is the actual command itself, and the rest of them are ones that are seen because they were imported by each of these particular modules, like from default.exec import exec command, which adds the same class to the module table multiple times. I think I've seen that before. Yeah, let's give her a try. Where's the code for that? Here. Whoops. Nope, that's totally the exact same class every time. But yeah, I think I've seen that before as way back, even before the newer builds back in Sublime Text 3. I think. I can't remember exactly the details, but I remember seeing before that this appears in the module table once for every time anything imports it. Like right now there are 6 of these. I bet you if I did something up here, like so, add a little bit of, get rid of that. Now there's 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which I imagine because this is imported, this class is now visible to this module, and there's probably no way for the plugin loader to be able to determine that unless it already knew that it saw this class somewhere else. That's probably more down the rabbit hole than anybody technically needs to get, I would think. But if I don't really care about any of that, just said decoded name. If we didn't have that in there, then it would just display all these by their command name. The command name would have to be unique no matter what, right? And that's probably going to break all kinds of stuff now. Yeah. Unsurprisingly, does this show the underscore jump command? It's a good question. Let's put that back to the way it was a second ago. Whoops, that's too far. Jump back, jump forward, add jump record. So no, unless one of those is the one that you were talking about from the history list, the new commands that are for people to be able to navigate. So yeah, let's go back to that. If that stored them in by their name, then this outer part doesn't need to be here, right? I assume that looks a little something like this, and then all of these come details. Whoops. No, huh? Shoot. The base command, no. SD4 respects Python idioms and doesn't register classes starting with an underscore. Ah, interesting. Oh, that's right, yeah. It also respects underscore all too, right? We're living the good life in the new plugin host. All we need to do is convince everybody with an old package that they need to upgrade to the newer one. What silliness have I wrought? Oh, right. It should probably just be equals decoded, I guess. If that's how we're going to play it. Right. There. Now there's only one. And the structure is probably smaller and cooler as a result, too. So that's always good. Let's get that print out of there. Do that one. We don't need that one either. Yeah. Details. That's the module argument. So does this have to be sublime.html for it to be considered mini HTML? No. Right. Is that working by accident? I guess not. Okay. Let's try that. Did that actually do anything? I can't tell if that's monospace now. Let's get rid of that too. That's better. Well, it doesn't have spans in it, so presumably it's interpreting it. So the next question becomes, what to do with this now that we actually have it? Should picking the item jump you to the place where it's defined? That was my original idea. But then I guess we can give her a try, right? Let's jump to, whoops. I guess we need the open file command for that. expand snippet-like variables, such as so. That would be another bug count 3+. Looks like the tracker is going to get a surge of issues after the live stream. Well, that's the sort of thing where I'd like to, verify that I didn't do something dumb there. Does pre work different? Doesn't look like it. No errors to the console, neither. Whoops, put that back to the way it was. Packages, package name, crunk. It's a quick panel item. Cool. Pre is not one of the supported tags. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Package control does do stuff like that, doesn't it? And it looks like it's got some italics going on in there too. Yeah, there's an idea. Does that seem bolder? I don't think so. Oops. It does look italicized though. Maybe it's something to do with the font that I'm using. Or the font my distribution has decided is the one that maps to the one that the theme is actually trying to use here, which is probably a better way of saying that. But yeah, that one definitely seems to have had some effect. I kind of like that. Wonder if that could be cooler by not providing the defaults there, but I kind of like the idea of seeing that. Command name, the details is the arguments. Oh, I guess an issue with that is having to un-HTML it over here. If I wanted to actually, well, no, I don't care to do anything with the arguments. I just need the annotation is the module, right? This is the adaptive theme with the default Monakai color scheme, or sorry, the default Mariana color scheme that I have an adjustment on to make the background just a tiny bit darker. But yep, adaptive. I think with the new quick panel item, PC can show even richer information about packages. It could. I think one of the limitations on that is that whole anything that's in one row has to be in all rows. So you sort of get into that, how much information do you want to show thing, because you're sort of taking up space. Item dot, shoot, what was it again? Oh, whoops. Let's do that too. It should pick a monospace font, but maybe there's a font config issue. Yeah, let's see here. If I do that, since I totally clobbered my console, I still haven't gotten around to tracking down what plugin is printing that so that I can remember what the hell reason I put it in place to begin with. I just remember that I was helping somebody. Oh, hey, it tells you where merge is located now. That's cool. That doesn't have any fancy information about fonts, does it? Nope. But that could well be. I never really played too much with fonts like that per se. I just sort of let it go with what it wants to do. It seems to be fairly readable, not fairly. It seems to be readable enough for me. But that'd definitely be interesting to see how that might be working for someone else. That is the okay. What if we did this? I was kind of expecting more action there. Oh, I guess maybe if I printed it, huh? The number of times, I swear. Syntax, all the arguments that people are having about semantic syntax highlighting and whether it will be slow or fast or usable for LSP to be able to do that. I can't even pick up on the idea that that was the wrong color because I forgot the parentheses there. I'm operating on a whole other wavelength, but that totally works. Huzzah! Now, I guess an issue with this, such as it is that it does not return the view this way. Let's see. I kind of suspected that would be the case. I'll have to look into the. Oh yeah, live streaming, showing people plugin development and finding bugs since sometime in late 2018. Ta-da! We don't care about that. We don't care about that. We do care about that. And whoops. Maybe we should try that again in a way where no file name on that, huh? I'm not sure if that means that the actual let's try that instead. Cool. Okay. So, the idea here is we set a setting on this view with a very specific name with the name of the class that is providing the actual command. Then we could have a view event listener that is applicable, applies to that particular setting, and in its on load, it could navigate to the appropriate symbol to jump the cursor to that location. so that it would not only open the file, it would take you to the actual command that implements the thing. That seems like it would be neat. Is any of the things in here the actual class name itself? Man, what are the attributes on a command? Format. Then again, underscore module doesn't apply in there either, does it? That another thing? Am I flashing back to a different language that? Oh, right. Well, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting that to be the result of that operation. I probably just needed this. No, that does the same thing. Color me confused. That knows the full name of the thing. I guess I could actually look at the is that not something I did? Oh, I was during it. Derp. Right. Never mind. I'm the smart party. A little something like that. Then this could be item class. Then pick it. Jump to. No, huh? Is that not what I called that? Or is it just an empty string? Nope. Oh, I guess if I did it in the right spot, huh? Still no? Did I not just verify a minute ago that that part worked? What if I did this? Actually loaded. That's tricky. Ba-ba. So we need to be cleverer about capturing the appropriate view. No, because probably if I did this, it would actually work, right? Yeah. So the reason that doesn't work is because item class is actually none. Oh. That's unfortunate. It was saying that the whole time and I never noticed it, wasn't it? Yes, yes it was. All right. I think that's a little bit of a sticky widget there. To actually get the class name, if we're actually using quick panel items in there, and that's the list of items that we're actually checking. Unless, oops, did I not push escape there? Oh, right. There. Stop that from confusing the heck out of me. This is capturing the actual items array, but maybe it should capture, no, it can't capture command dict because it wouldn't be in the same order. So that's no good. So the way this is currently written, it wants to capture the list of items that was provided to the quick panel so that when it gets told what index was chosen, it can actually find the thing. I guess the other way to go about this would be to do it like this. And then it can just look it up by name directly from the thing, right? Dot field, whose name I forget. Trigger. No. Does it actually work this way? Well, now I'm just confused. Oh. Right. Now that it's not one of those, this would be something like that. Except that's not called module, because why would it be? Why would I have used a longer name than that? Okay, now except for the part where it's broken. Which is intriguing in its own right. Make sure I'm not missing any obvious errors. Oh, the, right. Okay. The module, does the module no longer have that on it? Huh. Package default module. Oh, I guess not. I guess we were combining those together inside of the quick panel item, weren't we? Okay, now something's real unhappy about what we've done here. something like that. Just don't know. The name was not replaced as much as one might have thought that it was. Maybe don't be a bonehead. That probably do a thing. Yay! Cool. Do we need this print? No. Do we need this print? No. Do we need this print? No. That makes that look nicer. And a little bit of that action. Create ourselves a view event listener. Incidentally, the topic of the most recent videos on my other channel linked down below, where we're talking about why you might use, what event listers are, what you can use them for, and why you might use one over the other. And an example of that would be this. Make your instance only jump into existence whenever the settings object has that particular item. When this view is loaded, we can see, I did it again. I used single quotes for one and double quotes for the other. I want to shoot myself sometimes. God knows how many times I've done that in this code. This one is not me. I just copied that from somewhere else. From Sublime Plugin.py, as a matter of fact, way back in the day. So I guess a potential issue with that is once the file is already loaded, it's not loaded again, but it is focused again, so that's nice. So we probably need something like that. So if we open that, it's loaded. And then, whoops. Oh. Yeah, that one's an old one. We need to get rid of that one. Yeah, hang on. We need to do that too. So with no file, it was loaded, and that's still cool. If we chose this, I guess, no, that doesn't actually detect it, right? A little bit more work would have to go into that, but we can fiddle with that. I assume that's something that will work in a view event listener. Yeah. I'm not sure what the best way to handle that particular thing would be, but all we got to do now is class name. The symbol is self.view.settings.get. Jump to close, then clear the particular setting. so that our instance will go away. But in the meantime, oh, whoops. Indexed symbols, lookup symbol in all locations where the symbol is defined across all open files. So we could theoretically call this for the name of the class to get a list of all of the locations, which are going to be absolute file path relative to the project, and the third is a two-element tuple of the row and column inside of that file. So one of those would tell us what we want to know about the location of the thing in the file, and then we just have to make sure that if there's more than one entry that is returned inside of, we just have to capture the last one, or sorry, not the last one, the one that actually represents the file itself. I presume if it was the name of a class, I don't know, because it might appear multiple times, might it? Oh, new API. Oh, there is, isn't there? Yeah, I haven't updated this thing with all of the new stuff. Are those new APIs in the linked documentation for upcoming stuff? I guess you can look in the symbol file, right? Something that tells you the definition of a particular symbol. The other way to do that, I guess, would be to find all of the meta.class.pythons or the entity name class pythons, find the one that matches the class name, and then jump to that region. Which I guess is also tricky for the purposes of, like, we need a command for that, right? That stuff's not in the official documentation yet, the new official documentation, which is sort of kind of the reason why it's not in here yet. Although I do have various stuff on the go for digging through there and putting stuff in here, but so many other things to do. I'm using it not being available in that documentation as an excuse, if you will, for not diving into that more. But now would be the great time for having something like that. Should have focused the other view. Whoops. Is that not in here? No, it's probably in here, isn't it? Or is it? I guess I could actually take advantage of some of this stuff, couldn't I? I imagine that's the magic of that. Window. One of those. Nice. Oh, look, here it is. Indexed symbol regions too. Neat. Name region. Swankety swank. Is there a command in here that jumps to? Looks like this is totally the magic that I want to pull off here, right? I could just call this and have it navigate directly to the proper location. Let's see. That is a window command. Whoops. What if I could remember the name of a thing long enough to actually type it in? No, huh? Not gonna lie, I kind of thought that would do something. Go to... This command doesn't have a command suffix on it. Ah! That reminds me that I have a bunch of stuff in the scraps repository that I have to fix that for because I never noticed it until somebody else pointed it out. Go to reference. Go to... What if there weren't any... Unable to find class? What class? What are you talking about? Oh, is it just called echo? How about now? Unable to find echo command. Go to definition. Oh, okay. Swank. Now I'm curious what that one was doing that it was unable to find it. I guess technically that doesn't actually... I don't even need to do the magic of finding the view. Well, I guess I got to make sure that the file actually loaded first. Ah. No. It's terrible. They got to at least be the same inside the same thing, right? That symbol. Okay. Cool. I don't think that did anything. The cursor is still at the bottom of the file. Does there need to be a little bit of a delay in there? Because, let's see. If I was to pick the font size, it opened the file, but the cursor's down at the bottom. But now that I did it, no, it didn't seem to do anything either. So maybe that is just neither here nor there. Unable to find echo command. Does it need to have time to actually index the view after the file has been loaded, I suppose? So that it can actually find the thing? Well, now it's not saying that. It's just... It's taking me to the file, but it's not necessarily taking me to the location. Actually, I guess that's probably the magic of opening the file, right? Oh, for the second time it makes sense because it's not unloaded anymore. Right, okay. But yeah, it says unable to find echo command in the status bar very briefly before that happens. Where's the code that opens the view? We're calling the open file command so that it'll open the resource file from inside of the package file without having to manually do that. It worked one time. So it gathers the thing, it creates the resource with that structure, calls it, captures the active view, sets that class in so that the view event listener will trigger its on load at the bottom, where it does self view, run command, go to definition. But does that have any effect on anything? I mean, it'll only work the very first time because the buffer's not loaded, but it's definitely saying unable to find echo command in the status bar. Yeah, that's why I put, Will said in the thing that if the file hasn't finished loading, the symbol won't be present yet, which technically, whoops, the file is finished loading, but it hasn't had a chance to index yet, right? I would imagine that takes probably an insignificant amount of time, but probably happens after the file is loaded or concurrently with it, so the thing isn't done. And then there's the issue of when to actually pull it. I think that's where this probably needs a little bit more magic in it, because doing it this way in on load only allows it to work the one time. After that, it won't. So I guess you probably need to boost this stuff out into its own helper function so that it can happen there, and this can say if view.isLoading is false, just call the function directly. It would be nice to have a second level of filter to filter by view, window, or application. That should be fairly simple to add, especially if I put back some of that stuff that I pulled out, because that information was definitely present in here. If you wanted to find just application commands. When you list symbols for open files, it actually goes through the list of open sheets and searches for symbol regions in each on the fly. Huh. So in theory, that should work. Jumping to boop, boop, just to make sure that I'm not crazy. And it worked that one time because I did it there. Let's just make sure I didn't do something stupid there. Oh, it doesn't need to index them at all. Oh, I thought it was actually going to the index to look that stuff up. I guess not if it's symbols. That's different than indexed symbols, isn't it? Interesting. Maybe we got bigger problems than I thought. Is the view being closed? Yeah, I was just thinking it's only going to work once, so whatever this does should be it's in some sort of helper function that gets triggered from on load, but then also can be called from the place where the file is open. But I suspect that we're running into an issue of this being none or something. Picked class. Uh-oh, echo disappeared from the list. Oh, it's up there now. Neat. Oh, I guess did the list reordered itself? Picked class. Oh, okay. It definitely worked that time. And that time it said picked class increase font size command, jumping to increase font size command, but the cursor's at the bottom of the file. not at the actual symbol. So let's try this first. Let's see, what did we actually put here? Well, I guess technically, for the purposes of doing this, we probably don't need a lot of magic here. Let's do this. Where did I do that? View dot. Let's put that there. If view is loading, then move that over. Else. Whoa. This. And then that has to go to this. Oops. I shall turn on command logging. So let's give this a test here. That part's definitely working. So if I pick, say, decrease font size, command go to definition on decrease font size, but the cursor's down here. Unless it just tries to focus it, but not necessarily select it. And then just to test, if I did, it came back to it, but this time it did focus it. So that sort of seems like if it's actually loading, it has a hard time finding it. But then after that, it doesn't. Let's try that again. Decrease font size. Cursor is down at the bottom, down there. And then decrease font size, and it jumps there. And that probably doesn't need to be there. Jumping to go to definition, open file, go to definition. So yeah, let's clear that. So that time it called open file. That just focused the file. Didn't have to open it. It picked it and immediately went there, and the cursor jumped to that location. Then we picked decrease font size. It opened it. It picked the class. It couldn't open it. It ran some extraneous stuff because a new file opened. It said it jumped. It was going to. It said it went there, but it didn't. Yeah, sounds like some sort of race condition. I had a similar. Numlock indeed. So for example, anytime you find yourself doing something like this and typing in some sort of delay and hoping it's enough, you've very much done the wrong thing. Perhaps even more so because I broke it. Okay. Oh, cheeps. That would explain some of that action. All right. Smart party. Well, that delay was very prevalent, but it totally did a thing. What if we tried the old default 0? Hey, now it still works. So it just had to leave the event and then immediately come back. Almost strikes as one of those situations where the information has been calculated by some external thread but hasn't had a chance to be integrated with stuff because it was busy doing something else first. Sort of like things I've seen before, and other people have as well. I can't remember who it was when I was working on the help editor thing. If you create a package resource from inside of a command, load resource won't see that resource until after the command exits, even if you do the same Sublime set timeout 0, so that it just immediately cycles back and does it again. Although there's no guarantee that that's actually how that works. But I think that's actually, I mean, I probably got more prints in here than one technically requires. Whoops. Yeah, let's get rid of those ones too. Now I'm just sort of weirded out that echo isn't at the top of the list anymore. But I guess if it's just a list of things that isn't necessarily sorted, that doesn't really mean anything, does it? I'll probably have to sort the list by the command key or something. Actually, I guess you, well, you could probably, can you sort a quick panel item? Probably, I guess. I don't know enough Python off the top of my head to pull something like that off, but that doesn't really matter if the idea is you're probably going to want to do something like this anyhow. This is the select color scheme command. Cool. I think that's actually fairly useful as a thing, at least to someone like me that spends a bunch of time nerding out, looking at default implementations of things and helping people with stuff. I totally, this morning, spent a bunch of time looking into that add kill rank command just because it was more interesting than emails that were happening on a monitor over there where someone was unhappy that someone's database that's not mine wasn't doing the thing that it was supposed to do. And for some reason, people kept talking to me about it. Sublime is way more interesting. Is one of those extraneous commands doing something? It is, in fact, a collection. Yes. Not in this particular file. Which extraneous commands were you talking about there, Will? This particular thing is a list. So, yeah, I imagine you have to... That's not something that I can do off of the top of my head, but now you can call a sort function and give it the magic, like, lambda or whatever that gets invoked so that it could go on quick panel item.trigger to sort it that way so that the list of stuff would be in a particular order. Let's see. Actually, I probably could have done this. That probably would have been a faster way to pull that off. Accepts 2 arguments. Was one of those affecting the view selection? I don't think so. I think just the go-to definition. Nothing else should have any effect on the selection, I don't think. That's the only thing that's actually... Oh, well... adding a timeout to 0 would push the definition selection. Ah. I getcha. Yeah, that only seems to be required in the on load there, but maybe the selection wasn't set up yet. Depending on, I don't know anything about the internals of that. Where's the... It says return, oh, it sorts the list in place. All right, that's handy. No? Is that not a built-in thing? Oh, what does the file look like without go-to definition? If I just load it and then don't do anything here, we'll leave that part out. So all it does is destroy the view listener. And, oh, wait, hang on. Let me comment that aborted attempt out. The selection ends up being, that's not useful, way at the bottom of the file. It's the very last line. That's not something, I think that just happens for, even if you do this. Oh no, I guess not. I've seen that before where, oh, this I think uses perhaps maybe a different, no, it can't be using a different thing, can it? See, the cursor, when I did that, ends up at the bottom of the file, which seems to happen fairly frequently. One of the things I did in override audit when you do stuff is make sure that it jumps the cursor to the top of the file, so because that's more what you would expect. But that seems to be fairly, of course, Lord knows what else might be running in this operation that could be screwing with it. But I'm pretty sure I've seen that even in sandboxed copies that are, completely bone stock. But it's interesting that for echo, it doesn't do that, but for longer files, it does. That's weird. Oh, I picked the wrong. Yeah, is this only with files being loaded from $packages? Yes, indeed. Otherwise, I would have used the other, the actual method instead of the command, and then it would return the view directly. But you can't open stuff from packed archives that way. Although I do have some code in override audit that knows how to pull those sorts of things out, as complicated as it is to open the thing as a zip file. Is that more like what we're looking for? Does it make sense to have the command list sorted? I imagine it probably does, huh? Yeah. Here's that time someone wanted an exec command that would kill a build if it didn't finish in a certain period of time. That's so Will in the chat here is saying that we should probably make open file, not put the selection at the end. That sounds like another bug. I've always just sort of assumed that it was done that way on purpose. It's bothered me for a long time. Mostly because when I open a file and start typing, the selection makes it jump all the way to the bottom. In fact, one of the things that I added in override audit was the idea that when you create a report, it forces the cursor to be at the top, because otherwise, the append puts the cursor way at the bottom, and then the same thing would happen. Although, I say it bothered me for a long time, but it took me a while to actually get around to adding the one line of code that jumps the cursor back to the top of the pile. The only issue with this as such is that override audit commands don't appear in here because it's a Python 3.3 command, right? But if there was a command that was an application command with a Python 3.3 name, then, if there was a Python 3.3 plugin that just gathered this information and then called the Python 3.8 version, it could add extra commands in. That seems like it would actually be pretty good for opening a file from a Sublime package. That shouldn't be the case. Yeah, I would imagine the thing that bothers. Apparently I have some annoying printing going on in there. Oh, sorry. The command log. It totally logged the append that I threw that in there. Let's turn that off. Well, what was I saying there now? I've totally forgotten. Oh, the whole idea that you get this unable to open message here, which for me always made perfect sense because I'm imagining in my head the implementation of this is the thing tries to actually load the file that you gave it and then discovers that it's not there, but then it notices that it's in the packages directory, so it pulls it out of the appropriate thing and opens it that way and sets up the view. So yeah, I can imagine in my head that the way that code is structured, that there's something that's involved in opening a file and that would generate an error, but then something else that called it checked the return value. So I've never, had an issue with this, but this seems to annoy the bejeebers out of a lot of people. Certainly, often there's a problem on Stack Overflow or something, and someone will say, something's not working, and someone says, hey, check the console to see any error messages, and there's a yeah, I tried to open. It says it had an error opening my preferences, but they opened anyway. And then you have to politely say that probably has nothing to do with why your Python code isn't executing, but good to know. That's totally not a problem. I think. I guess the mind does wonder what sorts of things people are doing in packages to get around something like this. I mean, one of the things that I really like about Sublime is how I decided I wanted a list of commands that's all annotated and, here it is. I can see where it is, what arguments that it actually takes, jump directly to it, although that one may or may not work because I'm not entirely sure what this one was actually trying to do. That's been sitting in there for quite some time, but ooh. Will knows why it isn't working. Real-time debugging. This is sort of the fun internal mechanism. Open files implementation waits for the empty file to load and then inserts the file contents. Sort of like the old append type operation. Oops. Oh, that's cool. Let's try something here. Really? Let's reload this as a Python 3.3 package. That you were listening to the onload event. At that point, the contents haven't been inserted. Ah, interesting. One of the fun things for, being a nerd and playing with stuff like this is trying to think of, of all of the problems that I've seen in all of my many, many gray hair inducing years of software development, trying to sort of intuit how things might be working behind the scenes based on what it is that you're seeing. So it's nice to actually get, sometimes actual correlation that, yeah, that is exactly what's happening, or no, it works completely different than that. Does F string work instead of it? It will work in the newer builds that have the Python 3.8 runtime, but it won't work in legacy stuff. So primarily, I don't use that because I never really did any Python development at all until I started using Sublime, and then I wanted to create plugins, so I had no choice but to learn Python so that I could do that, and that was Python 3.3, which doesn't have F strings. So all of my knowledge is mostly garnered from there. So I'm going to have to get better at that. So package control has a really long module list. Now the fun thing is, override audit commands appear in this one, but the echo command doesn't. Whoops. Which is actually kind of neat. This seems like a very clever end run on pulling something like this off. This sample command could assume that it's running in the 3.8 plugin environment and just gather the list of commands like this and do something with it. But what if there was another command in the Python 3.3 plugin host in a different package? I guess it would have to be that did the exact same thing, but it just called this command when it gathered the list and provided this command and a dictionary with all of the information that it gathered. Then this one could add to that dictionary and have the full command list. The only potential issue there is shuffling a gigantic dictionary of stuff across in arguments to a command. That's probably not, I mean, it's not the sort of thing I would want to do on a regular basis, but one doesn't spend their whole day looking up commands, I assume. Or the only downside to that is having to have a second package to be able to do it. But I wonder if that's what Automatic Package Reloader is doing, because it has its own little... As a matter of fact, I think it might actually install itself as a 3.8 plugin and then also install a 3.3 one too. But I forgot that I actually had that in the thing and I could just do that the easier way. It's also really cool that that automatically skipped it over to the other plugin host too. Oh, what town we got? Oh, that's actually not too shabby. I think we did pretty good. We got something doing that, the thing that we thought we wanted it to do. We found some number of bugs in Sublime, or at least logical inconsistencies. I think, what's the count there, like 5 or something? Some of which may potentially be related to my Linux distribution's crappy font choice. But all in all, that's actually not too terrible of a night. Pretty good considering, you know, this time yesterday I had a headache because my eyes had been dilated and the world had looked so fuzzy for so long. I'm going to push this button now. I think we are going to call the stream there. It is getting kind of late, and we have gone through the 2 hours in record time. And with record viewership as well. So I'd like to thank everybody that watched for coming in, especially Will. It's nice to have a Sublime dev in the wings, providing information and telling you when you're doing something a little silly, or, you know, occasionally pointing out a bug, I guess, which isn't something that I expected to have happen. So thank you all for watching. Next stream should be on Tuesday. I'm not envisioning that I'm going to be called back to any sort of medical establishment on this kind of short notice, what with the world at large being the way that it is. And we will continue on perhaps with more modifications to this, or with the planned thing that we were going to do, working on the next release of Override Audit. And until then, remember you can subscribe to this channel and ring the bell notification icon if you want to know when I'm going live and hop in. Or you can subscribe to my other channel, which is linked down in the description below, where we do weekly Sublime Text videos every Monday, lately focusing on Plugin 101. But probably got some other juicy tutorials of another nature coming real soon now. At least I hope so. We'll see what the world brings. Until then, though, this is OdatNurd asking you to please have a sublime day and a sublime night, too.